10 Houses of Horror and Their Eventual Fates. When serial killers are caught, they are removed from society. However, the lasting physical evidence of his crimes, the house in which he committed the murder, is often left to be seen. They are often referred to as the House of Horrors, as a somewhat disgusting term, but one that interprets the success of their troubled, irreparable past. Sometimes they are destroyed and even all the evidence of the plot is destroyed. The second time the houses are demolished and replaced with new ones. Some just stay where they are, attracting the attention of tourists who are curious. Below are 10 examples of terrible houses and what happened to them after their occupants left. Number 10. Pier Mie Vampes. Thassos is a beautiful Greek island in the North Aegean Sea, famous for its clear waters and the traditional, simple lifestyle of its locals. It's a haven for long-distance vacationers who forget their worries for a week or two. Its most famous landmarks include the ancient theatre, which has preserved ruins and anonymous houses on the fascinating Paramum vampires. The house was occupied by 24-year-old Theophilus Shetides, his father, mother, sister and grandmother. Like most families in tight-knit societies, he was well known in the area, and the sudden disappearance of Theophilus in May 1996 angered locals. Theophilus explained to police investigators that he had abruptly left the thesis, but soon changed his mind and decided to tell the terrible truth. He first stabbed his uncle in self-defense and then cut off his head with a knife. In a bizarre twist, Theophilus tells police that over the next 2 days, everyone in his family tried to kill him. Every time he managed to stop them with an unlicensed pistol, he would put his head in the fridge and put their bodies in the trash. When investigators entered the house, they found pieces of the brain lined with walls and carpets covered in blood. Oddly enough, the house has remained exactly the same as it was in 1996. Curtains hang from the windows, and a model of the ship decorates one of the outer walls. Perhaps thousands of tourists unknowingly anticipate the horrors that occur there each year. It appears to be ready for sale, but no buyers have been found. Number 9. 10050 Cielo Drive. You may not recognize this address, but you will certainly recognize the crime. 10050 Cielo Drive has seen its fair share of celebrities over the years. The house was built in the 1940s for French film star Michel Morgan and features the likes of Cary Grant and Henry Fonda. It was owned by talent manager Rudy Albatelli, who gave the property to Roman Polanski and his beautiful young wife, Sharon Tate, in February 1969. Shortly after Polanski's move, she left the country to release the film. And Wojtek Frykowski. On August 9, all four, including a man who came to a nearby house, were brutally murdered by the infamous Manson family. Evangelical evangelism Charles Manson was recruited by 4 members of the family. Patricia Crane Winkle, Susan Atkins, Charles Watson and Linda Butchers were ordered to go inside the house and kill everyone inside. The last murder was by Gary Hanman, writing a message in blood on the wall. Intended to join the Race Young gang, he was later arrested for murder and sentenced to death, which was later commuted to life imprisonment. The owner of the house, Rudy Botelli, returned shortly after the murder, and remained there for another 20 years. Trent Reznor of 9 Inch Nails began renting a house in 1993, and began recording there. He asserted that his confession had been obtained through torture and that his confession had been obtained through torture. The following year it was sold, demolished, and a new mansion built on site. Of murder. Number 8. 10 Rillington Place. John Christie and his wife, Ethel, were described as a happy couple who kept to themselves. They appeared as a couple every day, meeting each other as usual, but John had some deep issues that led to him becoming one of the most notorious serial killers in Britain. The two lived at 10 Rillington, their last home on a street in Nottingham Hill, London. Christie's assassination began in 1943 when she murdered a local prostitute, Ruth Fawcett. He buried her in the back garden, which will later be filled with more unfortunate victims. Between 1943 and 1953, Curly T killed at least 8 people in a Rillington Place row house. A strange twist, however, occurred in 1949, when Timothy Evans, a Christie's resident, reported to the police that his wife and child had been killed at the address. Police found the bodies and apparently obtained a forced confession from Evans, which he later reiterated, blaming Christie for the crimes. Despite his pleas, he was hanged for murder in 1950, allowing Christie to go on for another 3 years, including the 1952 murder of his wife, Ethel. A new tenant's body was found inside a couple's kitchen hollow, which led to Christie's arrest. He was executed in July 1953 by the famous executioner Albert Pierre Point. In an attempt to draw attention to the address, Wellington Place was renamed Ruston Close shortly after the assassination and was occupied until the demolition of the entire road in the early 1970s. The house is now thought to be located between Bartle and St. Mark's Road in Notting Hill. Number 7. River Valley Farm, Holcomb. Holcomb is a quiet, charming area of western Kansas, 70 miles east of the Colorado border. The villages are known for their vast landlocked, nearby market community, and are the unfortunate subject of Truman Capote's In the Cold Blood. The book tells the true story of the horrific murder of a hardline family who occupied River Valley Farm in the 1950s. While a Kansas state prisoner, Richard Dick Hack learned from a cell colleague who worked on Herbert Clutter's farm that the family was rich. After his release, Hack recruited Perry Smith, a fellow criminal, and the two set off on a road trip with the family, intending to return to the family and escape easily. However, the robbery turned into a mass murder. When it was discovered that there was no money in the house, Smith slit Herbert's throat and then killed the entire family before fleeing. Smith later told police that the victim was also involved in the killings, although Hack denied this, insisting that his only goal was to rob them while Smith killed them all with a single hand. Murder, and told authorities. He was later hanged for these crimes. River Valley Farm still stands today, and the killings are no less fresh in the minds of many Holcomb residents. After reading the gruesome details of what happened in Capote's famous account, visitors from all over the world still go to Holcomb in hopes of catching a glimpse of the murder. However, the current owners of the house do not allow visitors to the property, and a clear warning is issued to those who break into the door. The only physical symbol of the killings is a plaque commemorating the 50th anniversary of the killings. Number 6. 25 Cromwell Street. Another uncertified British home was 25 Cromwell Street, home to the murdered couple Fred and Rose West. Fred was born in 1941 in the quiet village of Mitchmarkle. He was troubled from an early age, dropping out of school despite a seemingly good life. West suffered a motorcycle accident at the age of 17 that apparently damaged his brain so much that he was able to overcome limited continuity and possibly contribute to his later life. His life quickly spiraled out of control, and he soon began stealing and sexually abusing underage girls, forcing him to be separated from his family. She gave birth to several children for several years before meeting her future partner after a day in crime in 1969. The first murder attributed to the couple took place in 1971. While Fred was in prison on burglary charges, Rose killed his stepdaughter, Sherman, the daughter of his ex-wife, Raina, who was living with the couple. That was just the beginning. The mother was killed months later after visiting the couple's first home to collect her mother. When they moved to Cromwell Street, the criminals of the West really went to great heights. The duo killed at least 13 victims and buried them in several parts of the garden and house until their arrest. The street on which the house stood is still called Cromwell Street and is still accessible to the public. However, the house was destroyed by the local council in an attempt to eradicate the evil associated with the area. This is the road that now connects Cromwell Street to the parallel road. Number 5. The Hotel of H.H. Holmes. Until the release of The Devil's Book in White City in 2003, Holmes was largely unknown in popular culture. Surprisingly, he killed between 9 and 200 people in the 1880s and 1890s. Holmes was born in 1861 in New Hampshire to Herman Henry Midget. He studied at a medical school and found a way to make money from corpses in a laboratory there. He would steal them, defame them so that they could not be identified and it could not be claimed that these people were killed in various accidents so that they could claim the money on the insurance policies that they had taken on them. He later moved to Chicago, an event he was preparing for. He also built a hotel to host the 1903 World's Fair, which he said was to be used to accommodate thousands of prospective visitors. However, the reality was very different. Holmes designed the building in such a way that it could kill its occupants and move them through a series of dungeons, hidden tunnels, and trails. The bodies will then be stripped and sold to medical schools. He made sure that he used different architects so that no one would know the whole project. The building even had its own gas chamber in which Holmes locked the victims before they suffocated. Holmes was hanged in 1896 and the hotel was eventually demolished, but is believed to be located at the Englewood Post Office. Partially constructed interior walls are still present in the basement, which may have been from the Fortress of Murder. Number 4. Beachcomber Lane. There is a house on the corner of Beachcomber Lane and Sea Lark Road with a sad past. Until June 2001, it was the home of Russell and Andreas. The couple met while living in the same apartment complex in Texas and later got married with the promise of having more children. Andrea suffered from depression and eating disorders in her teens, but she seemed happy and content during her initial relationship with Rusty. These problems began in February 1999 with the birth of their fourth son, Luke. Andrea attempted suicide several times and was placed on a Haldol to reduce her depression, which seemed to improve her mood as well as her outbreak. The couple was advised by their doctor not to have any more children, but eventually Andrea became pregnant with her fifth child, a girl they named Miriam, who was born on November 30, 2000. After Mary's birth, Andrea stopped taking prescription medicine and gave birth again. Severe depression. Russell was strongly advised by his doctor, Mohammed Saeed, to stop Andrea from spending time alone with the children, but Russell ignored these warnings, believing that he needed more freedom. June 20, 2001. Andrea stayed with the children when Zangai went to work. She went to the bathroom, took a bath and regularly drowned her 5 children together. Then she rang her husband's bell and said, "It's time." Yates was jailed for murder before being transferred to a psychiatric facility in 2006 after pleading not guilty to insanity after a trial. All 3-bedroom homes are still standing and are now being rented out after the crime. In fact, he drew a lot of attention to those who read the case, but now he enjoys a more peaceful existence. Number 3. 92 2nd Street, Fall Street. The Fall River area of Bristol County, Massachusetts, differs greatly from the rest of the 92nd Street listings. Probably because of the time that has passed since the assassination, and also because of its place in folk tales, the house is now a shameless place for tourists. It was the home of Bordens, a pious, frightened family who enjoyed an economically comfortable environment in which arguments and lines were often drawn for their father's actions. Andrew Bourdain was not particularly popular. He had amassed a fortune in his years as a successful businessman, but was accused of running a lucrative business and making seemingly many enemies at the height of his success. On August 4, 1892, the youngest daughter, Lizzie, screamed and the maid from the living room downstairs apparently killed Andrew in her sleep. A hatch-like instrument was used to sift through the skull with about 10 horrible swings. While escaping from the bedroom, the couple also found their mother dead, whose skull had been similarly crushed. The murder weapon was found in the basement, and before any other suspects could be identified, Lizzie was charged with the murder. However, a jury hearing her case acquitted her and she died in the Fall River in 1927. The house where the murder took place is now a bed and breakfast, based on the vast majority of its dark past. If you are interested, the owners arrange property negotiations and murder trips for incoming guests. Number 2. 8213 Somerdale Avenue. John Van Gassy, known as the Killer Clone, was charged with killing 33 people between 1972 and 1978, making him one of the most notorious serial killers in the United States. Gassy was born in 1942 to Marion and John Gassy Sunner, a disgusting alcoholic who imagined young Gassy. Gassy was initially known in his local area as a friend, always ready to support local charities, often acting like a clown to entertain children. It soon became apparent that there was another side to Gass. In the late 1960s, he was jailed for sodomizing a young man who worked in the same franchise restaurant that had been employed by his wife's father. After his release from prison, Gassy learned that his wife had released him. She remarried in 1972, and things seemed to be going well. He was popular in the local neighborhood, and often had people around his house on 8213 Somerdale Avenue, although most people complained about the stench coming from the basement. Although he had already started murder, after his second wife left in 1975, Gacy's murder increased. His mood was to invite the young boys back to their homes to perform magic tricks with fake handcuffs. After banning them, he will kill them and bury them in a crawling place under the house. He was eventually arrested for his crime when his last victim was linked to him. Police demolished the house while removing 27 bodies buried in the gas estate. This lot was abandoned for years before it was bought. A new property was created on it and the address was changed so that viewers could no longer work. However, the property attracts visitors, some of whom will arrive on a tour bus to break into the home of one of the worst serial killers in American history. Number 1. 195 Melrose Avenue, and 23 Cranley Gardens. Dennis Nelson was a British serial killer who used to live in his house after living around his family. He is known as British Jeffrey Dahmer. Nelson spent time in the Army and Metropolitan Police Force before resigning and beginning his massacre in 1978. Nelson found his prey by touring and inviting pubs and clubs in the area. The man returned to his flat. Afraid of the loneliness that followed their departure, he would kill them and often go to bed before destroying their bodies. He killed his first address at 195 Melrose Avenue for 3 years, where he burned the remains in the back garden or buried them under the floorboards. In the first letter, 12 victims were killed, which caused a problem in Nelson's storage. Eventually he had to spray his room again and again as the number of bees attracted to the corpses increased to 23 in 1981 at Colonel Garden, where he killed 3 more people. It is learned that his crimes were discovered when other residents of the building asked a plumber to investigate the smell coming from the drains. Human remains were discovered from the plumber and police were contacted. He was sentenced to life in prison in 1983. Both houses are still standing and both have tenants who do not like to talk about the past. In August 2013, Nelson's Cranley Garden residence was put on the market at a price of $100,000 less than the price so as to try to forget what happened there in the hope of attracting anyone big.